Yo, what's going on, everybody? Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Cody Vondell, and today is a very special video. As you can tell, I'm not at the home studio. I'm traveling to visit family and friends back home in Virginia for the holidays, and I'm shooting this video in the room that I grew up in the 90s and the 2000s. While I'm back here visiting, I wanted to be productive and take a little trip down memory lane. So today we're going to be revisiting some of the artwork that I created during my youth at the turn of the millennium. I wanted to make this video because I'm sure many of you out there had a very similar childhood growing up making art and music. The pop culture of the 90s and the 2000s and the Wild West era of the internet created a very inspiring time to grow up. A little forewarning, a lot of the artwork that I'm going to be showing today is very primitive, oftentimes created on pen and paper or obsolete software, and that's because it's coming from a time before I had access to stuff like smartphones, iPads, apps, and programs like Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. And it's all very derivative of the music and movies and games and comics that I was consuming during my youth. There's going to be some pretty strange, goofy, cringy stuff, but it's going to be fun to look back at it all, see what ideas stuck around, and what really built the foundation for the type of work that I do today. Before we get started, I just gotta say thank you all so much for liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing my videos. It means a lot that the work that I'm doing is helping you with your design process, and if you're following along with me on screen or using some of my templates from Etsy, make sure to hop on our Discord server. We have an amazing community over there of artists, creators, and musicians. Everybody's having a really fun conversation, and if I haven't seen you over there, I hope to see you there soon. If you want to support my channel and get yourself some really cool merchandise, make sure to hop on my Etsy. I have pins and patches, t-shirts and hats, a variety of holographic stickers, and of course, graphic design templates that will speed up your workflow. And if you like my intro, outro, and background music, I create it all. Just search Cody Vondell on Spotify or your preferred streaming service, and you can also catch me on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. And of course, at Cody Vondell on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. So with all that being said, let's take a little trip down memory lane and get nostalgic.
I've been drawing since before I could write. When I was 4 years old, I loved the Ninja Turtles and the original Star Wars movies, and my parents got me the making of behind-the-scenes videos for both of those. My dad has played guitar since the 60s, and my mom put me in piano lessons at the age of 5, so I just grew up around live music, playing recitals a few times a year, watching behind-the-scenes footage. I just always knew I wanted to be creative. I'm not going to show all the goofy elementary artwork I made today, but we will start here with my guy Blast. I made him up around 1996 at the age of 7 after playing Crash Bandicoot and quickly rebranded his look to feel more like 1990s Sonic the Hedgehog. I was drawing a lot of different characters that were all very derivative of the things that I liked, and the way that I felt I could make them original was by combining elements of those things. So Blast is sort of Ninja Turtles and Sonic the Hedgehog hybrid. Over the next few years, Blast and all his little friends would become like my main recurring characters that I would draw, and I was really trying to emulate what I would see in popular games and shows and comics. I was a huge nerd. I got a Sega Genesis at the very end of its shelf life in the mid to late 90s, so everything was on sale, and with it came a ton of inspiration for my art. Sometimes I'd draw the characters that I was playing, but like a lot of young artists, I always loved making up my own characters. Besides Eiffel 65, the Sega Dreamcast coming out was the biggest deal in my life as a 10-year-old in 1999. Sonic's new look was a huge inspiration for my Blast characters, and a year later when I got Jet Grind Radio, it totally changed my art. I wanted to make rad characters inspired by graffiti and bright neon cities, and a year after that, when Jet Set Radio Future came out, it just further inspired me to add those kind of futuristic elements into my Blast characters and some of the other stuff that I was drawing. So at this point, my friends and I were learning to play guitar and keyboards. I had been playing piano recitals for a few years, and we were just really trying to start a band. And so I was making artwork for the band that was sort of inspired by the games and the comics that I was into. I was really influenced by music from Jet Set Radio, the Tony Hawk video games, the Mortal Kombat and Lost in Space movie soundtracks. So at age 12, I was into a lot of big beat and drum and bass, industrial, metal, punk, old school hip hop. My uncle was a skateboarder and a surfer, so that really influenced me to get into skating culture. My first band in 2001, 2002 was called Storm, and we changed the name to Fusillade, and all of this musical inspiration visually resulted in the cyberpunks, a bunch of characters I draw in cool environments with, Y2K outfits and stuff like graffiti and CDs and band instruments and lava lamps, just everything 1990s you could think of. I had no idea that cyberpunk was the name of a genre. I heard the phrase in an article about a band I liked and decided it was my new phrase. So by around 2002, I was trying to make logos and brand all these different ideas, and a lot of my characters and band logos were showing up in each other's pieces, and I was really trying to connect it all together. It was very primitive and derivative, of course, but it really set the bedrock for the work that I do now. So by 2003, I was a freshman in high school, and I was obsessed with bands and DJs and guitars and synthesizers, and a lot of the edgy aesthetic that the early 2000s had to offer. I was still doing Fusillade with some new friends. We played some shows, and we actually played and won the school talent show. About a year later, we changed our name to Porcelain Smile. A few more friends joined, and we played shows all across Virginia. We recorded a few EPs, and I was much more focused on music than visual art at this time. By 2006, I was mixing my visual ideas back in with the music I was making, and at this point, I was learning to record my music under the moniker CBZL. I was a teenage MySpace musician, and I was heavily influenced by Mindless Self-Indulgence, The Gorillaz, The Prodigy, and of course, Jet Set Radio. In 2006 is also the time I started learning a little bit about digital art so that I could make flyers and cover art and web graphics for our music projects. Porcelain Smile continued to tour and release new music without me because in 2007, we graduated high school, they went on tour, and I flew out to California to meet a bunch of friends from the online Mindless Self-Indulgence scene. One of these friends was Mike Diva, who I would go on to work for on a lot of the bigger projects in my portfolio. Another friend I met during this time was Brandon Moore, who I started a music project with called Vivid. We were heavily inspired by street art, graphic design trends of the 2000s, and a variety of electronic music. Brandon was much more computer savvy than I was at the time, so having him around really helped me push to the next level to use digital software to create my art. And as I was finishing up my general education at a local community college, I was using all of my spare time to study the history of my favorite genres and my favorite aesthetics, and I just focused all my time on learning everything I could about creating digital art and music production. While I wasn't in class, I was traveling to play music live with online friends across the country. During my college years, I got to visit about half the states. We did a little indie tour across the East Coast. I got to play some shows in a few states out west, and I really got to make some amazing memories thanks to early internet music networking. Porcelain Smile had a New Year's 2010 reunion show, and some of the members and I recorded a one-off album after that. We played a few shows under the Vondells. That's where my last name comes from. And we actually named the band after my dad's band, the Vondells, from the 1960s. I worked several freelance jobs and continued working on various art projects. In 2010, I started working at New River Community College Games Lab with a small team developing educational games for the iPhone. I was one of a few artists creating audio and visuals for these learning games, and we were featured in school programs across the world. While I was at Radford University, I entered a few pieces into the Addy Awards show and took home gold and silver. One of my personal ideas was a music-based, post-apocalyptic themed game and comic called Audio Warriors. As I earned my bachelor's degree, I was continuing to play shows across the states, and in 2011, I started making some music videos for some of the songs I was playing live. I appreciate you listening to my story about growing up, making art and music at the turn of the millennium. I wouldn't want to grow up in any other time.
So that's it. That's my story. All of the strange, goofy, creative stuff that I was doing during my youth at the turn of the millennium. It was an amazing time to grow up. I would not want to grow up in any other time, and I appreciate you all sticking around with me and taking this little trip down memory lane. It's been an awesome year creating all kinds of videos, tutorials, templates to work on. The Discord is popping off. I am very appreciative and thankful for all of you over there. I'm looking forward to 2023 and all of the amazing stuff we're going to be doing together. So if you haven't yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will catch you in my next video. Thank you all.